to True Crime Sisters channel. We missed last week, but we brought bloopers instead, but just due to...
We had a lot going on.
Yeah, holidays, and she was renovating.
It was a nightmare. It was...
But she did her bathroom, and it looks great, though.
Yeah, it really does. I'm really happy with it.
Yeah, but it was pretty time-consuming, so we decided to skip with that and Thanksgiving, and...
It was just a little much.
Yes.
So, but we are back.
We are back and better than ever. I mean, not really, but we're back. That's something.
We're hanging in there.
So, today we're going to talk about Ben Geen, and he was a nurse that went kind of rogue, I guess you could say. So, Benjamin Geen was a nurse who worked at Horton General Hospital in Banbury, Oxfordshire. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. His crimes spanned over 3 months, starting in December of 2003 and ending in February 2004. Ben was born in 1980, and he was 23 years old at the time of his crimes. He served in the military for a time, and he worked mostly in combat. His parents described him as someone who was very smart, but would lose interest in things quickly. And they also said that he was somewhat of a thrill seeker. His coworkers seemed to think he was somewhat of a know-it-all. They thought he had some sort of obsession with being at the hospital because he was always picking up extra shifts and would volunteer to help with any critical condition patient that would come in. They also felt like he had this need to be the hero, which, you'll find out is definitely true. Several patients who were under the care of Ben in the accident and emergency department suddenly began experiencing respiratory failure. These patients did not have a history of respiratory issues, and they were not in critical condition when they came into the emergency room.
Are you done?
Yeah, I kind of went... I
was like,
rogue.
wait a minute.
I went rogue myself there for a second.
Staff started noticing that there was a large amount of patients having the same issues. When they became aware of this, no one had died yet, although some patients became very close. The hospital decided to start an internal investigation. However, this did not end the situation, and several more patients were going into respiratory arrest. Most of the patients were coming into the emergency room for just minor issues and non-life-threatening injuries. There were some people who were recovering from surgeries, and everything would be fine 1 minute, and then all of a sudden the patient would be struggling to breathe. It didn't take them long in the investigation to realize that Ben had been caring for each one of these patients. A few of the other staff members actually confronted Ben about this, but he just made up some sort of excuse. However, some of his coworkers thought he was a great nurse and mentioned the patients loved him, and he had saved several lives during this time at the hospital.
So, 65-year-old Harold Boss came into the emergency room. He had emphysema and was having trouble breathing. Within minutes of caring for Harold, he collapsed, and luckily they were able to resuscitate him, and he was able to be released and returned home. Since some of the nurses were already feeling suspicious of Ben, this only made their suspicions worse. And then we have 53-year-old David Long. He came into the emergency room. Ben tended to him, and within minutes he collapsed. 77-year-old David Nelson goes into the emergency room. He was overall in good health, but again, within minutes of Ben treating him, he can't breathe. They decided to test his blood to find out what was going on, and they discovered that he had a sedative in his blood that had not been prescribed to him, and this was called midazolam. Then we have 51-year-old Robert Robinson. He came into the emergency room because he had been drinking alcohol and took some painkillers. And then, of course, within minutes of Ben's care, he also couldn't breathe.
Then 67-year-old Herline.
Yeah, I don't know. We were trying to figure this out earlier.
Yeah, I know. I forgot. Herline.
I don't know.
Herline?
Herline.
Herline sounds better. We'll go with it. Herline Probert came into the emergency room with a dislocated shoulder. Herline was actually a retired nurse and had worked at Horton General Hospital before. She was able to recount some of the interaction she had with Ben that day. She said she told Ben that she was in a lot of pain, and Ben informed her that the doctor had prescribed her morphine. He said that he would go ahead and give her that medication and then flush out her drip. But within seconds of him telling her this, she was unconscious. 22-year-old Jonathan Feltham came into the emergency room and went into respiratory arrest in Ben's care. Another patient, 73-year-old John Thorburn, fell into a coma after Ben treated him. He was in a coma for a few days, but he was never actually able to fully recover from this and unfortunately died in 2009. Other victims of Ben's that did not result in death included 89-year-old Hilda Wigram?
Yeah, I guess.
61-year-old Walter Coates, 73-year-old Sheila Gray, 55-year-old Noreen Brooks, and 79-year-old Arthur Marlowe, and 88-year-old Grace Fox, and 79-year-old Esther Jordan. That's a lot.
It's a lot. So, the first patient that Ben was charged for killing was 65-year-old Anthony Bateman. Anthony had asthma and a heart condition, and it was also suspected that he had cancer. On January 6, 2004, Anthony went into respiratory arrest and died. The next patient Ben killed was 75-year-old David Onley. On January 21st, 2004, David came into the hospital. He was diabetic and had a heart condition. He had just had a triple bypass 3 weeks prior, and his wound had become infected. And the night nurse had reported that David was doing well. She reported there were no issues or anything. And then Ben took over David's care at 7 a.m., and by 8:30 a.m., David had stopped breathing. They were able to resuscitate him, and he was alert and talking to the nurses. And then a few hours later, David had a heart attack and was able to be revived. And then after all of that, he unfortunately suffered another heart attack at around 4 p.m. where his organs failed and he died. They suspected and later confirmed that both of these patients were given midazolam, and that is used to produce sleepiness or drowsiness and relieve anxiety, usually before surgery or some kind of procedure. And it can slow or stop your breathing if you have taken too much. So that makes sense.
Police were informed and they started working with doctors and other staff members. They combed through all of the employee records and came to the conclusion that Ben Geen was the only possible suspect. Ben was arrested on February 9th, 2004. He was walking into the hospital where police were waiting for him. He had a syringe in his pocket from the day before. When he noticed the police, he emptied the syringe into his pocket. He told him it was for personal use, but after it was tested, it was confirmed that it had...
I know, I was trying to remember how to...
I know.
Vecuronium.
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 What she said. In it. During his interview with police, Ben denied all of the accusations. He told police that since he was picking up so many shifts, he was at the hospital a lot. So this would make his chances higher for always being there with a patient that would go into respiratory arrest. He also told them that he found the routine emergency room visits boring and that he would much rather work with patients in critical condition units.
So, Ben's lawyers mainly argued the fact that the police investigation had only lasted a week before they arrested Ben, and that they didn't have enough time to properly investigate the situation. But, however, with a situation like this, they really didn't have time to waste, and it was, quite clear that Ben was responsible for all of this. So they argued that Ben got a thrill from critical condition patients and that he enjoyed being the one to resuscitate them. On April 18, 2006, the jury found Ben Geen guilty of 2 murder charges and intentionally inflicting grievous bodily harm on 15 patients.
See, I'm not the only one that
that was hard to get through.
It's always me.
Then on May 9th, 2006, Ben was given 17 life sentences with a recommendation that he spend at least 30 years in prison before being considered for parole.
Oddly enough, there is a Justice for Ben Geen website. I know, crazy.
Yeah.
His case was even looked into by the London Innocence Project. It was also reviewed by lawyers and health professionals, and all these people seem to think that there is a major miscarriage of justice. Medical professional Jane Hutton submitted a report stating that there was an unusual pattern of medical illness and is incorrect because there was no stats to prove whether this was actually unusual or not. Mark Heath, an anesthesiologist, also submitted a report, and he says that the pattern of patients collapsing was inconsistent with the drugs that Ben used. He said if injected with muscle relaxers, the patients would experience the symptoms, but they would still be conscious. They also tried to say that David Onley probably didn't die of an injection, rather he suffered a heart attack due to his past history of alcohol abuse.
Which I feel like they didn't, they don't know that for a fact, so that's that seems to be kind of a random point to make because they can't prove that that's why he died. But I will say the
injection with muscle relaxers.
No, saying that it wasn't. It's an incorrect statement to say that it's an unusual pattern because there are no stats whether to prove it's an unusual pattern or not. That I feel like that is a valid point because if there's no stats that say this is how many people go into respiratory arrest each month or whatever,
right,
then I guess legally they wouldn't be able to say that it is unusual if there's no studies on it. So that is a valid point. But I still, I don't really I don't really buy their defense, but
right.
I guess you could say that would be valid, but the appeal was denied in 2009 due to lack of evidence. In February 2010, Ben tried another appeal and they took Ben's case to Criminal Cases Review Commission. But after reviewing his case, they declined to take it. However, I did read in one article that apparently they might be reconsidering taking it now. But as of now, that seems to be all of the movement in this case. His parents do run a Justice for Ben Geen Twitter, and they have almost 6,000 followers on there. And I kind of, did a little scrolling through it and reading some tweets, and I did see a tweet from his mom on October 13th that read, "Monday, October 18th is our son's 41st birthday. 15 years he's been wrongly imprisoned, unable to celebrate with his family." And then she goes on to list Ben's address and asks for people to send him a birthday card. To which then I was reading some of the comments, and, people were like, "I sent it," Like, people were, like, sending him cards and stuff.
That's crazy.
I mean, it makes sense that his parents would think he was innocent.
Yeah,
I mean...
Nobody wants to believe their kid, intentionally tried to kill somebody.
But, I mean, they seem to be pretty...
But, I mean, he's bored with just random...
Yeah.
duties,
and I mean,
he wants to be where the action is.
Right, and he even told police that he liked working on critical condition patients. Yeah. So, I mean, there's not... I mean, yeah, the investigation didn't last long, but it said they went through all of the employees. They looked at every employee at that hospital, and, I mean... He's the only one that was on shift for every single one of the incidents. So
that can't be just a coincidence.
Yeah.
I mean, if he's the one there, all the other people that were on site with one of the patients probably wasn't on site with the rest of them that went down.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, he was the one that was caring for these people. I mean, some of these, the one woman came in for a dislocated shoulder, and then all of a sudden she's going into respiratory failure.
Yeah, that's pretty,
Yeah. I mean, some of them, you could see maybe the one where the alcohol and the painkillers, maybe you could see something going wrong with his breathing there, I guess.
Yeah.
Or the emphysema, but...
Yeah.
Some of them were just run-of-the-mill, I stubbed my toe and now I can't breathe. It's not...
It's just not really linked together.
And the fact that related. He's the one that's saving all of these people, he definitely had that, savior complex. He wanted to be the hero. Which could have probably started out accidentally, and he saved somebody, truly saved them, and everyone was patting him on the back, "Hey, good job, man," and then he's
yeah,
yeah, that's
oh, I like that.
Yeah.
So he was sent in there for 30 years.
Yeah, I think it's 30 years before he can be considered for parole. So
17 life sentences. So, do you think he deserves 17 life sentences?
I mean, yeah, he did kill 2 people.
Yeah.
And, I mean, he halfway killed 15 other people. I mean, even though he obviously wasn't trying to kill those people, but... And also...
Do you think he should be in prison, or do you think he should be in, a mental institution?
I mean, well, see, and this is,
I'm drilling in you with questions.
Yeah. Well, and this is, in, London area. So, their prison systems might be better than America's, because America's prison system is supposed to be, they're supposed to reform you, but obviously they don't. But, I mean, he obviously has some sort of like he thinks he's like God, like, you
Yeah.
know, I can save these people. And is that something that would be that you can like cure?
I'm not saying he's crazy.
No, yeah, I know. I mean, he obviously needs therapy, but
yeah,
would
I'm thinking
that,
like he
reform
needs
him?
something.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I mean, I just don't think. I don't know. Some of these people that get thrown in prison, I just feel like they need something more than a lockup.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, yeah, he killed 2 people. Yeah, let's not forget,
right,
you know, his victims. But at the same time,
he obviously needs some sort of help. And I mean, most of them do. But and that's what I'm saying. I don't know about the prison systems over there because America has a terrible prison system, but because there are other countries that like I think it's like Australia has like a really low prison like where you get sent to prison, like it's really short because they actually focus on rehabilitating people. And like there's a certain max, like it might be like 15
I guess that could be a good
or
thing
something.
or a bad thing, but I don't know. Australia has some crazy cases too.
Yeah, but they focus more on actually like helping the people versus here they just throw them in prison and they're like, oh well, you get your GED and you can read some books and we'll see you later. You know,
yeah, you can be a doctor.
Like, yeah, like they really don't do anything to actually help people here. To where maybe over here in like England, they actually maybe they try to help people. I don't know enough about theirs, but
yeah. Well, if anyone sees this from England,
yeah,
you can give us some insight.
Yeah, let us know how the
prison system works over there.
Hopefully, like I said, it's better than ours because ours has some serious flaws, that's for sure.
Yeah, most definitely. It's like lock you up, throw away the key, and just like
forget about them. And
yeah, which I mean, essentially, some of them deserve that.
Yeah, for sure.
But
I mean, some of them, especially
there's some like I feel like this Ben Geen. I feel like he could be like
right. He might benefit from actually like having some serious treatment, and especially like sometimes when you see like kids and stuff, you know, commit crimes, and even with kids, you know, they just like you said, lock them up and throw away the key, and then when they're kids, then they get out at some point and then they turn around and they commit more offenses and stuff. But especially for kids, if they could actually like focus more on reforming them and getting them help, they might be able to be released and become, you know, a productive citizen. But most of the time they just reoffend because they don't get
the skills, they don't get the things that they need.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But that was a little side rant.
Yeah. Hopefully he gets some help.
Yeah. I mean, personally think that seems like he's guilty of these crimes.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That, you know, I mean, I guess
I think so, too, but, I
guess in, 15-ish years, he'll be able to be up for parole. I mean, he'll be, almost 60 years-ish, late 50s by then. Yeah. That's all we have for you this week. So.
But if you guys can think of some cases that you would want us to go over with you and, you know, get it out there, list it below.
Yeah. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. give us your case suggestions and
Yes.
let us know what you think about this case or if you have any additional information.
Mm-hmm.
So we will see. Oh, shit. Tossing everything around. So we will see you guys next Tuesday.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.